Welcome into the PFF podcast. Apparently my mic is up too high. I'm hurting Sam's ears already. We're going to dive into week 5. It's in the books, and I think the league is starting to get sorted out, Sam. I feel like there's a few teams at the top, a few teams way at the bottom. Everyone else is either 2-3 or 3-2. That is my expert analysis to this point.
Yeah, that kind of sounds like it's not being sorted out at all. We have the Kansas City Chiefs at 5-0, and then everybody else in the league seems to be about the same.
All right,
except
do that
for the
over.
49ers.
Nothing's being sorted except the top and the bottom end.
And the Giants, who apparently could go 0-5.
Yeah, every week I keep saying the Giants, there's no way they're going to lose another game.
So that kind of leads us straight into the biggest stories of this week, which is injuries. The Giants had no wide receivers by the end of the game.
4 wide receivers.
They literally were left with Roger Lewis as their wide receiving core because all of their top receivers went down hurt.
Not a good look when you're going up against Denver next week, Sunday Night Football against their great secondary. But, all right, let's discuss that a little bit. Odell Beckham now out for the season. That has been confirmed today by Ben McAdoo. Brandon Marshall makes what looked like a great catch over along the sideline. He gets hurt during that. Sterling Shepard goes down, and even Dwayne Harris, punt returner / wide receiver, also goes down. We're talking about a team that was already hurting, 0-4, now 0-5. Offensive line issues. The defense isn't playing the way it did last year. What do we make of the Giants at this point, particularly with Odell Beckham?
It's okay because T.O. has tweeted that if they need a short-term stand-in a receiver, T.O.'s ready.
I think he could do it.
I said on Twitter that I count me among those that would be morbidly curious enough to watch that.
So I was a little wrong earlier this year when I said Adrian Peterson felt like that freakish athlete who at 32, 33 years old when you're not supposed to be good would still be good.
I think he could, but
maybe he could.
The Saints are never going to play him enough to find out. So
maybe he could, but he doesn't look like that same guy. So T.O. is probably in that bucket, right? Where you could be like T.O. at 40 years old, probably could do some damage on an NFL football field.
Yeah, T.O. retired. When T.O. retired, he could still get it done, but he was one of these guys who it's always a case of weighing up the headache versus what you're actually going to get out of him. Plus, at that point, there's a veteran minimum thing that comes into consideration. If you're at the point where you're part of a receiving core, you're number 3, number 4, your ceiling is sort of 500-600 yards as a bit part of this equation. How much do you want to pay that guy? Because it's probably not whatever the veteran minimum for a 15-year guy is versus, the third-round draft pick that's costing you a fraction of that. So, but in terms of if cost wasn't a consideration and if you didn't have to deal with the headache, I think T.O. could definitely still get it done when he retired. I could probably still have a role now. It's like Jerry Rice. If Jerry Rice had been content with being the number 3 / number 4 receiver in Seattle, we could have seen another couple of seasons of Jerry Rice putting up 500-600 yards a season just by being that sort of savvy and understanding where to go as a slot receiver or as a 3rd or 4th option. But he didn't want to do that, so he quit.
You're taking us back here.
Yeah.
You're really taking us back with the old school receivers. What does it mean now? Giants receiving core, pretty much depleted.
Yes.
What does it mean bigger picture, though, for Odell Beckham? Now we're talking about a guy who was already trying to play hurt. You know how this happens, and we're going to talk about J.J. Watt and maybe a little Rob Gronkowski, these superstar athletes that get a little nicked up and it gets worse and it seems to snowball. Can Odell Beckham bounce back from this? It's going to be an interesting position for the Giants this offseason, figuring out, do they want to re-sign him long-term, and are they going to be in position to draft the next quarterback for the Giants as well? I mean, this is unexpected territory this season for the Giants, who are sitting at 0-5.
I think that was that the same leg that he injured in the preseason as well?
I didn't look into it. I just assumed it was.
I think it was.
I will say this, though. Ball location does matter.
Yeah.
In both plays where he got hurt. I'm not trying to completely blame Eli Manning, but the preseason one, high throw over the middle, opened it up for a hit. This was a short slant. Yeah, and you're just throwing it so high, opening him up for a hit. That short area ball location just matters a lot.
What I found really interesting about this is that they had him back returning a kick on the very play before the one that he got injured. And that's usually teams don't do that. You don't put your star player back there returning kicks or punts because he can get hurt.
Season's on the line.
And he goes back, he returns a kick, he's fine. But the very next snap, routine slant, and his leg just gets caught under Casey Hayward in the tackle, and it snaps, and that's him done for the year. So it's why I've always thought that was a ridiculous way of thinking. You can get hurt at any given snap. Any snap, you can just fall the wrong way, you can get caught up.
Yeah, but you're playing your odds, Sam. If you play 80 snaps, you have more of a chance of getting hurt as if you play 20 than if you play 20.
It's not like he's out there for no purpose. I mean, he's getting the ball on that play, which he has a chance to score. It's not, you're not putting it out there for fun. It's not like you're sending him out there to just be L5 on the cover unit. You're sending him out there with the ball in his hands to return for a touchdown. So I have always thought that if you think this guy is your best chance to score on a return, put him back there because you can get hurt at any time and you need that guy making plays.
Who's the best L5 on kickoff coverage this year? We need Gordon.
Talk to Gordon.
Yeah, we'll need Gordon out here. We do track where everybody lines up on kickoff coverage. Is L5 the easiest kickoff coverage position, Sam?
Again, you're going to have to talk to Gordon. The level of...
Oh, I thought you dropped that out. I thought you dropped that out like it was just a useless position.
No, I just put that out there as a random position on the coverage team. I don't even know if that's what we call it. That's what we called it when we played, but whatever. It was nasty, though.
We'll call Gordon in next week to find out who the best L5 is in the league.
At the injury, they kept showing it on slow-mo, replay, and the most telling part about it was the second that it happened, Casey Hayward leapt off him and was running away, pointing, that's usually a bad sign.
Those are never good.
But it wasn't until a while afterwards that I saw it at full speed, and it just looks horrible. I mean, the leg just gets caught under him, bent the wrong way, and it's not... You can understand that something broke as opposed to just things got twisted under him.
Right.
Yeah, it's a huge blow for that Giants team. It makes that dynamic between him and the team really interesting going forward now because he is going to be looking for that big payday. He's coming off the big injury. His PFF overall grade has gone down every year from that spectacular rookie campaign. I mean, okay, this season, a bit of an asterisk in terms of already battling through injuries and the rest of the Giants' offense being a mess, but he's been trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and when you do have, when you do have guys that get banged up, I think there is something to it. The wear and tear on your body, which brings me to J.J. Watt, another superstar going down. And now last season he plays, 3 games? Has a back injury, now broken bone in his leg. I mean, these are not easy injuries to come back from. And now we're talking about a guy who was... our discussion when we went to our 0 to 100 scale was how do we get him from our plus minus where he would almost break the scale and fit him into the 0 to 100 so it made sense. We're just 2 years removed from having that discussion where he's breaking our system. And now there's going to be a point where he's played, 6 games in 2 years and has to try to come back from that. What do you make of Watt?
This was an interesting injury because it looked so innocuous. They kept replaying it over and over again on Sunday Night Football, and it was, you were almost kind of struggling to see what happened because, there was a tangle of heels and he kind of went down, but it didn't look like anything. So apparently what actually happened is in the midst of tripping over, he went down hard with basically all of his weight on his knee into the turf. That was what braced the fall, I guess, is his knee supporting all of him, which basically led to 290 pounds going through the top of his knee and fracturing, the tibial plateau is what it's called, but basically fracturing the top plate of your knee, snapping that in half because it's not supposed to support 290 pounds driving into the ground. That sounds sore, I'm going to say.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun at all.
How
do you bounce back from all of these different things, that especially the back? Because this year, and we were just discussing this off air too, it was like, all right, the grade's good this year. Watt looked like he was back to a point, but he still wasn't back. He wasn't back to this breaking the scale J.J. Watt. Now, it felt like one of those things where any given week he could drop the old plus 12, Sam, and the old plus minus, plus 12, where you just break a game. Am I allowed to say that?
No, you're fired now.
I get security. Security's looking at me funny over here at PFF offices. Can't drop the plus minus. But it just felt like any of those times he could drop that 95 overall game and be back to his usual self. Now we have to wait till next year, and it's another injury to bounce back from.
It brought up an interesting discussion. ESPN's Sarah Spain was talking about maybe he becomes a guy whose potential is unfulfilled because of these injuries are going to rob you of J.J. Watt the real J.J. Watt from this point forward. I get what she's saying, but it seems to me that J.J. Watt has already more than fulfilled his potential. I mean, we have seen clearly a generationally great player. We've seen him at that level for, 3 straight seasons before he got injured the first time. The very minimum, he seems now like a Gale Sayers character, where even if injuries are the thing that's going to blight the remainder of his career, you've seen a Hall of Fame player at his peak for a sustained period of time, at which point I'm not sure you can really call that unfulfilled potential as much as just, you didn't see it for as long as you wanted. You didn't get a guy that's at that level for a decade plus. You only got to see it for 3 years. But I don't know. It just seems like a weird way of phrasing it, terming it.
I think I get what you're saying, though. I think you could say, you could play the what-if game. I mean, if you look at the paces, pull out his numbers, Sam. Pull out his ridiculous numbers. If you look at the paces that he was on and the seasons that he had put together, you could play the what-if game and just say, just give me 2 or 3 more of these, and then are we calling him Reggie White? Are we calling him Bruce Smith? Or are we now looking back at J.J. Watt's career and saying, well, he played like a Reggie White or a Bruce Smith for 4 years, 4 or 5 years?
But this is what I'm saying, is that what's the difference? I mean, either way, if his career ended today,
because
he's probably
sustained
still
greatness
a Hall
means
of Famer, right?
Because sustained greatness means something.
Yeah,
too.
but what is it? I mean, you're still Gale Sayers is a Hall of Famer. So what does an extra 5 years at that level do for him?
Well, I don't think she's trying to answer the question, is he a Hall of Famer or is he not? I don't think she's keeping him out of any
But this is what I'm saying.
long-term
if we're
discussions.
already putting him in the Hall of Fame, what's the extra longevity doing for him?
The Bruce Smith, the Reggie White thing.
I mean, I think he's already, maybe not Reggie White. Reggie White is one of those guys that has, you are the greatest defensive player to ever play the game conversation.
Okay, so Watt had 4 seasons of ridiculous, off-the-charts, exceptional play.
Yeah.
And then he had a very, very good rookie season as a 5th, okay? If you just doubled that, and you said, okay, he had 8 unbelievable off-the-chart seasons, now that's a whole different stratosphere in conversation. And now we don't get to see that. We're missing 2 years of his prime. He's 29. Sure, he could bounce back, but it's very unlikely that he hits even as recent, 2015 levels.
I just don't know that it makes that much of a difference. Like I was saying, that Randy Moss is another guy whose career kind of got interrupted in the middle for completely different reasons.
Yeah, Andrew Walter.
He went to Oakland, and that derailed his career. But and people were questioning at that point, what does this do to Moss's legacy? Like I would have said that if he retired the day he went to Oakland, instead of going to the Raiders and playing there and having a downturn in numbers and production, if he retired that day, he would have been a Hall of Famer. I mean, the first 6 years or whatever it was that he put in the NFL were better than the 6 years of anybody else up until that point, including, I think, Jerry Rice, depending on the numbers you're looking at. Like, if he just quit at that point, he would have been a Hall of Fame player, an all-time great. No amount of bad after that could invalidate that. And then, Moss was a different story because he then gets traded to the Patriots and, reborn as this.
Gets elevated by the greatest quarterback of all time. Look, it's not about like negating or taking away what's happened. We just want to see.
I want to see it too. I just don't know that it makes a difference to his legacy.
So I think it's the same thing with Rob Gronkowski. I think we're looking at 2 guys, and isn't it funny the way Watt? It just feels like Watt just takes more punishment too when he's on the field. Maybe it's just now because he's been more beat up. Gronk absolutely takes more punishment when he's on the field. Just the way he gets banged up and hit and making catches over the middle. Even before he missed Thursday night's game, his first missed game of the season the other night, he hasn't looked exactly like himself. His big plays haven't been like running away from guys. It's been more, that rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, carrying guys. Like he's Mark Bavaro now, like later in his career. But wouldn't it be interesting? Gronk has only been in the league since 2010, Watt since 2011. But Gronk's been in since 2010, maybe the best stretch of tight end play of all time when he's at his peak, from a run blocking and receiving standpoint, and he's just been banged up his entire career. Watt had that; he had healthy seasons, 5 healthy seasons in a row. Gronk just is banged up nonstop. What could he have been if he stayed healthy?
Yeah, that's a more interesting question to me because with the Watt thing, you've at least seen 4 straight years of essentially blemishless, awesome Watt. There's no kind of question about what could be. with Gronkowski, it seems like every single season he's banged up. So it's almost like a perpetual question of, how much extra is there if you got 100% healthy Gronkowski? And especially with that being the red flag or the question mark on him coming into the league, was injuries and durability and all that kind of stuff. Again, not the same story with J.J. Watt, so it's almost like his career is now being derailed by injuries. Gronkowski is just this permanent question mark over what percentage on top of what we're already seeing could there potentially be if injuries weren't a factor.
There always felt like there's like a cliff, though, that Gronk is closing in on, right?
Yeah, because again, it's just this never-ending barrage of being beaten up, and at some point, that just destroys you.
He's on the TB12 method this year.
Water,
a lot of water, no suntan, no sun burning.
Yeah,
I would say, but that should be keeping him healthy. Maybe it only works for Brady.
Water.
I don't understand. No, but interesting discussion. We're talking superstars getting hurt and how it could affect their career. Odell Beckham's rookie season, I mean, he truly did look like the perfect all-around receiver, right?
Yeah.
The best we've seen since Julio Jones. I keep saying when you talk top 3 wide receivers in the NFL, it's Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, and Odell Beckham at his peak. But we're getting further and further away from when that peak truly was. And I'm talking about a guy that can win contested catches down the field, run away from guys down the field, run away from guys in the short game, and just be dynamic after the catch. To me, it's Julio Jones and Antonio Brown up at the top, and then Odell Beckham had shown it, but he had slowly fallen off just a little bit, and the injuries will certainly hurt.
Stephon Diggs coming into that conversation now.
Ooh, Stephon Diggs. Does he play the big game as well
Yes.
as some of those guys?
That's what is so remarkable, is that he is looking more and more like Antonio Brown.
Like Antonio.
They're the same stature. They do a lot of the same things well. And the thing that separates both those guys from other small-ish receivers is that they don't play like that. Those guys make big plays, big receiver plays. They'll go up over defensive backs and take the ball away. They will take big hits, whereas most of those smaller guys don't, or at least don't survive them long term. Those guys look frighteningly alike.
Well, we get to watch Stephon Diggs on Monday Night Football against the Chicago Bears. We're recording just before.
Where he'll now score nothing.
I know.
Because we just
he'll make you look bad.
Yeah.
If you guys have any suggestions or feedback or answers to some of the philosophical questions that we've been providing here, podcasts, plural, podcasts at profootballfocus.com. You guys, as always, will fuel our midweek mailbag show, or perhaps if you just have thoughts, philosophical thoughts, or if you want to change the game of football, as many of our listeners have tried to do over the last few weeks, with some success, some a little bit less successful, be sure to hit us up either through that email or on Twitter at PFF_Sam, and I'm at PFF_Steve. All right, do you want to just fly through some of the results yesterday, some of the big picture stuff, week 5?
What do we got?
Let's start with the Steelers. Big Ben, 5 interceptions. Stat of the week, which is not a PFF stat. This is me reading the box score. Completions or catches by Jaguars players. Blake Bortles threw 8. Ben Roethlisberger threw 5.
Nice.
Completions, not really completions, but catches by Jaguars players.
I'm all for evolving the box score to include statistics from the opposition, as we will know with our Des Bryant PD tracker.
Oh yeah, you are all about that.
All about that.
They're not really a stat, but we'll just make it up. So it was an ugly game for Big Ben. It was not 5 interception ugly. You know, some of them not completely on him. That first pick 6 was batted at the line of scrimmage, even though it looked like he threw the ball directly to Telvin Smith. That's a little bit of bad luck. But then some of the other ones just late in the game, just forcing passes into coverage. The first interception was incredible, I thought, by Jalen Ramsey. Playing trail position on the tight end, makes a diving interception. You just can't force that throw into coverage with Jalen Ramsey, one of our top-graded cornerbacks right now. What do you make of Ben and the Steelers? Everybody's coming back to these off-season comments now, saying that he was ready to retire. Is he all in? It's been a different Big Ben this year.
Well, he came out of this game questioning himself as well, asking himself.
That's a big question mark now.
Does he really have it left? You know, does he still got it in the tank? And, I mean, whether he has or he hasn't, he's starting to doubt whether it exists, which in and of itself is probably more important than whether he's got it or not. Like, at this point, he doesn't know if he has it, which is a huge problem. Like, your quarterback, if nothing else, has to have this insane streak of self-confidence where no matter how badly they play, Ryan Fitzpatrick could go out there, throw 7 interceptions, the next day would be out there YOLOing down the field, having not shaking his confidence one iota. Ben Roethlisberger, though, is doubting himself.
Love that guy. Fitz.
And that is a huge problem. You can't have your quarterback questioning whether they have the ability to lead an offense which is stacked with weapons for him.
If I didn't hear him open his mouth and say those things, I would think that he's in that he's closer to that great quarterback bucket of they'll bounce back from this.
Yeah.
Last year at this time, Aaron Rodgers is telling everybody to relax. We're fine. He's calling out Pro Football Focus for saying that he's not looking as good statistically. And, of course, he turns things around, goes on a run. A few years ago, Tom Brady had to face all doubters, including one Sam Monson. But even beyond Sam, it was, statistically wasn't great. They start off 2-2. Right now, they were getting beat up by the Kansas City Chiefs. They turned it around. So you've got these great quarterbacks who do have that ability to bounce back. And like I said, if he hadn't said that or said anything or had any doubt come out of his mouth.
Well, he has bounced back in the past.
He has.
I think it's telling now that he is doubting himself because, he isn't just head down, we'll bounce back from this, let's move on to next week. He's questioning whether he still has it left in the tank at a time where this offense should be competing and stuff. So, I think you've got to be fairly significantly concerned about that offense and his future.
So then I look on the defensive side for Pittsburgh. I have never been sold on their defense over the last few years and watched that game pretty in depth, and I cannot believe some of the stuff that they try to pull off defensively. Stunting and twisting almost looks like with no rhyme or reason the way they do it sometimes. And what happens in the run game, and we saw this on the 90-yard touchdown run to Leonard Fournette, you're either stunting and just making it so difficult on the offensive line to block you that you're running into tackles for stops and no gain and tackles for loss, or you're stunting and leaving an open gap. You're just doing it too much. Very rarely do they just straight up play football. And our guy Ben Stockwell, director of analysis, says they probably have the most talent they've had in years up front to just be able to play straight football, but they're trying all this trickeration. Ryan Shazier looks like he's just playing a different scheme sometimes. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just fascinating to watch, and I don't understand why it's so boom or bust right now for Pittsburgh's D.
But I think they've always had a large part of that because for years that defense hasn't had that much talent on it after being known for defense. And they've kind of papered up the cracks by doing that stuff, by making it more difficult to read, by essentially scheming these guys open some free plays,
right?
And taking the fact that every now and again it's going to cause a problem and lead you to a big bust in some sort of breakdown in scheme. And even then, leaving a gap open is only a problem if they find it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get it.
Greg Williams seems to have this entire system based around the idea that the chances of them finding the weak spot in your defense is smaller than you'd think it is. So, look, I'm just going to hope they don't see this and blitz this side.
Oh, I'm all about some of the stuff that they do, like defensively. I mean, they've got maybe more moving parts on coverages as any other team in the league. They're playing hybrid coverages where it's cover 2 on one side, cover 3 on the other. They're playing some pretty good stuff that is challenging for the defense. It's when that stuff doesn't work well, or it goes up against a better quarterback, or you just lose a gap sometimes, and then they do find it. It does look a little ugly. I do think we need to start talking about Jacksonville's defense. I know every week we talk about the roller coaster, but ultimately that defense has been outstanding. Rushing the quarterback with guys like Calais Campbell, now second in the league in pressures, and those two cornerbacks. Every week we're talking about Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Boye, both statistically two of the best corners in the entire league.
Yeah, I mean, those two have been fantastic. The A.J. Boye thing is clearly not a fluke last year. It was the one-season wonder thing is always a concern.
Litmus test, Sam. It was a litmus test this year.
Well, interestingly, all of those one-season wonder cornerbacks from last year, whether it was an A.J. Boye who just hadn't really played that much before, or whether it was a giant departure in terms of baseline from Aqib Talib and Janoris Jenkins and those guys, all of the ones that were rolling into 2017 with a question mark over whether they were the 2016 guy or the guy from before that, all seem to have backed it up so far. I mean, we're only 5 games into this, but
right.
Aqib Talib is still the 2016 Aqib Talib. Janoris Jenkins has still been playing pretty well. And A.J. Boye is definitely still dominating. And, Jalen Ramsey as well. came off the back of 2016 playing really well, has backed it up by continuing that, if not gotten even better. That's weird. I mean, I would have expected at least one or two of those guys to regress back to what had been their previous baseline.
In a position that does,
fluctuate.
I always bring it up to you, Sam. You're like, hey, why is this guy playing well? I'm like, well, it's only a 5-game sample at cornerback, which fluctuates so much. So, yeah, it is kind of bucking all of my analysis and trends. How about Blake Bortles now? He's won a game. Week 1, won a game. I'm putting it in quotes, but 125 passing yards in Week 1. They win 140 passing yards in Week 4, and they win Week 5, 95 passing yards. I'm sorry, they lost in Week 4 to the Jets. But Week 5, 8 completions for 95 yards, and they win. And the big thing with Bortles is making better decisions and taking care of the ball, which he's doing, I guess, this year because they're not letting him throw the football.
I don't think he attempted a pass in the second half of the game.
Sounds right. There was a lot of runs.
Yeah, like an entire half, and they didn't even attempt to throw the ball. I mean, that's college stuff. That doesn't happen in the NFL.
And then Leonard Fournette, somebody asked if we were Leonard Fournette haters. I don't think we're haters at all. He had a 90-yard touchdown run through a gap that you probably would have turned that into a 50-yard run.
I got speed. Look, if I'm getting through the gap that's there.
I gave you 50 yards.
I can get further than 50, maybe not now.
I would have gotten
prime.
25 to 30.
25 to 30.
You would have gotten 50. Leonard Fournette gets 90. So he gets proper credit for that extra burst of speed that makes him a little bit better than a PFF analyst. But the point is, it was a little, it was just a ground and pound type of running game. I don't think it was anything special from Fournette. He had a few runs where he maximized his run blocking and ran through contact, but still not making a ton of people miss.
Well, he's not trying to. I mean, that's the thing. They're using him basically as a blunt object and slamming him between the tackles straight up the middle every single play. And, I mean, it's working, I guess. He's productive. He's making good gains a lot of the time, but it's not going to result in these missed tackles, long plays,
attitude
anytime other than, blowing a gap and having a straight line to run through, that kind of thing. So I guess it's what you're looking for, but he's being productive with what they're asking him to do.
His leaping touchdown was pretty sweet. It was from about the 2 or 3 yard line. Need more of those.
Yeah.
If you could jump from that far into the end zone, you might as well do it. So again, impressive week for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Back to the drawing board for the Pittsburgh Steelers at home as well. For all of Roethlisberger's struggles, he's at least played well at home the last few years and had struggles on the road. So that was a little concerning. Let's take a quick break to tell you about our friends over at Draft. That's draft.com or Draft in your app store. Great way to play fantasy football because they take your best players. You don't have to worry about waiver wire or trades or all of those injuries that hit yesterday. Don't even worry about it. They will fill your lineup for you. All sorts of different ways to play. They've got head-to-head drafts, 3-person drafts, all available right now. Games start every few minutes. I have a couple long season leagues all ready to go. And again, I'm not even updating my rosters every week. It's all in there. And you don't just play NFL. There's MLB, NHL, golf, NBA. It's all there. And today we will give you a free $3 game once you make your first entry and use the promo code PFF. So that's promo code PFF over at draft.com or draft in your app store to get started today. All right, Sam, what else do we have for yesterday's games? The Philadelphia Eagles win handily at home against the Arizona Cardinals. Nice day for Carson Wentz, I think, right?
Yeah. Big day, 4 touchdowns, was it? A lot of
That's all you need to know.
Pass to Nelson Aguilar, which is really all you needed to do.
Aguilar.
Bomb to Aguilar, and he'll do the rest.
So you're still banking on that evaluation from a couple years ago that Aguilar will be a useful
well, not so much still
NFL
banking as I'm banking on it again. I'd kind of written it off after the last couple of seasons, but I'm back on my original Nelson Aguilar love train, and it's going well at the moment.
No, man, you got to keep faith. We had mentioned the mismatch up front. Arizona Cardinals offensive line going up against the Eagles defensive line. Carson Palmer under pressure, not a huge amount of time as far as pure numbers, 21 out of 46 dropbacks, though most of the game was
quite a lot.
But a lot of the games was garbage time. And,
yeah.
But still, still a lot, but it's not like over 50% of the time where you're, but I think as far as in the context of the game, they were getting after Carson Palmer as expected.
And it's still telling that, we're saying this is a pretty good performance giving up pressure 21 out of 46, passing snaps.
Oh, it's not good by
that's still a huge amount.
Stretch.
Just looking through the list of pressure these guys gave up. 5 pressures from John Wetzel at left tackle, 5 pressures from Earl Watford at left guard. A.Q. Shipley was okay with just 1, 2 from the right guard, and 6 from Jared Veldheer at right tackle. And that right tackle experiment with Veldheer is going horrendously badly so far this season. That Cardinals line is still on pace to surrender more than 300 total pressures over a season. 316, I think they're on pace for now.
What was the record again? Like
220 something?
220?
229 maybe?
Did I steal one of your stats?
No, this is a bonus one. I'm throwing it out there as an extra.
PFF Elite stat right there from Sam. While we're talking about Elite, while I just brought up Elite out of nowhere in a very salesy pitch there, Sam.
Slick.
Don't forget to tell everybody what's in Elite now.
PFF single game grades. So game grades by game. If you want to find out how somebody graded that isn't in our refocused article, the top 5 graded guys at a position, or somebody we spoke about as a position of note, you can find out everybody. PFF grades by game, and
you'll get the finalized game grades.
Yes.
Don't forget they go through an extensive review process by multiple analysts, all of our senior analysts. There's a whole pass that goes by NFL coaches' eyes, former NFL coaches' eyes. And we had a former NFL player on the podcast last week, almost just kind of announcing to the world that Mr. Will Montgomery, working for us as well, he's on the staff. So be sure to check that out, all a part of PFF Elite. Going back to the Eagles real quick, when we were doing the preview podcast, I was kind of like warming to the idea to maybe call the Eagles a sleeper, but I never went ahead and called them maybe the favorite to win the NFC East because I didn't feel good about any team in the NFC East. Are we starting to switch from a season where it was supposed to be Cowboys and Giants to now maybe it's Eagles and Redskins in the NFC East?
You're telling me it's not the Giants anymore?
I'm saying the 0-5 Giants, while I don't think that they're going to go 0-6, I actually do think they're going to go 0-6 now. I don't. They're in trouble.
How many O's are they going to get? I mean, this is a team that is not good, and they don't have any receivers anymore.
Right. And the receiving core was supposed to be elevating Eli Manning. Now Eli's playing a little bit better than we expected, but all the receivers are hurt. All right, the Giants are out of it. So, NFC East, what you got here?
So, the Eagles, we talked before the season that they'd always flattered to deceive, and that the reason they had never been as good as they looked on paper heading into the season is that they were bad in 2 important spots. They had no receivers and they had no cornerbacks. And without those 2 things, you're never going to actually be able to look as good as your roster should be. But the receiving core looks fixed. Alshon Jeffrey coming over, Nelson Aguilar, new life, Torrey Smith. Those guys have helped to elevate the play of Carson Wentz in year 2. He is not the guy he was in the first 4 weeks of last season, but he's not the guy he was in the remaining 12 either. So he's bounced back, and he's at least closer, I think, to the first guy than the second guy.
Yeah.
So we're seeing good Carson Wentz. We're seeing what he can do to those receiving weapons, Aguilar, Smith, Jeffrey, Zach Ertz still there as well. They've taken losses in the backfield with Darren Sproles, but LeGarrette Blount, Wendell Smallwood, they've still are able to function as a running stable, especially with Blount, as long as he continues to pound the ball pretty well. So I think the offense, good. The receiving core thing, fixed. The defensive side, the issue was cornerback. And we thought they'd fix that with trading for Ronald Darby, and then Ronald Darby goes down in the preseason, and it's disaster again because suddenly Jalen Mills is getting targeted like 500 times a game, and the whole thing is going to hell.
Speaking of on pace to set records.
But Patrick Robinson is quietly having the game of the season of his life, and has become their number 1 corner, has become the guy that is the one guy capable of going up against legit receivers and shutting them down so far. So if that continues, which is by no means a guarantee because Robinson is coming off the worst season of his career where he was lit up pretty consistently last season. I mean, if Robinson continues at this level, this Eagles team has a chance because Robinson is one good corner. Jalen Mills, for all the times he's been targeted, I mean, he's been bad but not terrible. You know what I mean? He's been passable given the amount of times he's been
given
targeted.
all the attention. Yep.
At which point, they're kind of in decent shape because that front is so monstrous. You know, Brandon Graham, Timmy Jernigan, Vinny Curry, Fletcher Cox when he's back. It can be dominant. The problem is if Patrick Robinson kind of remembers what he is and goes back to being the Patrick Robinson that gives up a lot of catches,
right,
then you've got some problems. I guess the thing in his favor is that he has previous seasons of really good play. So, okay, last season was terrible.
It's all pretty much
not even terrible. Last season was bad. It was his worst career. But he's had stretches, at least, in the past where he's looked really good. This is probably as long as he's ever had a stretch, and it's probably better than any stretch he's ever had. But it's not without precedent. You know, it's not a guy that you look at and say, there's no way he can sustain this.
Right.
It is going to come back down at some point. Robinson, at least, there's something there where you can say, I mean, that might last for a while.
Well, he's one of the top-graded cornerbacks in the NFL right now. I'm going to guess it's not going to last at that level.
No.
But with the Eagles, again, they were one of those teams where every year we would say they have one of the best rosters, position by position in the NFL. But where they were weak, the two positions you mentioned, wide receiver and corner, essentially trumped all that because it's the pass game. You have to be able to do something in the pass game in today's NFL. If you either have to stop the pass or pass the ball efficiently. So that essentially trumped the fact that they had a pretty good offensive line, pretty good defensive line. I'm not going to get too much into Eagles fans in general, but they're generally an angry bunch from what we see. I would like to encourage all of the nice Eagle fans to get in contact with us. Just kind of balance it a little bit, because there are some mad Eagles fans either telling us that our Carson Wentz grades are off or that their offensive line's not as good as we said. But their offensive line right now is number 3 in the NFL in pass blocking efficiency, and they are actually one of the NFL's best offensive lines, whether you want to believe it or not. But I want the nice Eagles fans to hit us up and say, hello, hey guys, we're right here. We're enjoying the season.
My favorite comment from an angry Eagles fan mad about the offensive line in an attempt to sort of play gotcha was when we posted our first quarter All-Pro team. The image that went up, none of the starting 5 offensive linemen were Eagles. And this guy posted this and was like, I thought the Eagles had the best offensive line in the game.
Right.
And then somebody else pointed out, well, they're number 2 in the league in 3 of the 5 positions. So, you know, just because they're not the number 1 player at any one position doesn't mean that as a unit, that offensive line still isn't very good.
Yeah, you haven't really caught us in anything. We'll say this, though, just to highlight. Brandon Brooks, 4 pressures. Jason Kelsey, 8. Lane Johnson, only 5. Jason Peters, 6. So a lot of guys playing pretty well up front. For the Eagles, what else do we have yesterday? Carolina Panthers going to Detroit. Another fan base that isn't always happy with us, the Detroit Lions. We have to defend ourselves against them. It's seemingly every week. We just think that the roster might not be as good as their record has showed. They keep making these comebacks, though. The Matthew Stafford fourth quarter comeback, but he needed to play better early in the game. And then on the other side, it looks like Cam Newton starting to find that groove the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, this is our Cam Newton Hour podcast.
No, we're staying in 2 minutes here.
Cliff notes.
We have been talking about the Panthers nonstop. This is rapid fire flying around the NFL.
Look, it's the same as a week ago. They're using him correctly, and he's starting to look a bit more comfortable, which is ironic given the week that he was coming off. But, yeah, Cam Newton is starting to look like Cam Newton again.
That's it?
Cliff notes, the end. Done.
All right.
In and out.
Detroit, they going to fall off the cliff right now?
I think this team is better than we gave it credit for.
That's fair.
The defense is better than we thought it would be. It's gotten a lot of improved play out of places that we didn't expect it to come from. That secondary, like DJ Hayden, for God's sake, had a really good game this week. That's not supposed to happen. But you know, Quandre Diggs has been impressive all season. Glover Quinn, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a better team than we gave it credit for. But it is still flawed. I mean, the offensive line. Any offensive line that is starting Greg Robinson at left tackle has problems. Matthew Stafford hasn't been as good as he's been in the past because of those problems.
Right.
And it is costing them games because they're not able to rely on Matthew Stafford to get it all done because he doesn't have the platform to. So I think this is a better team than we gave it credit for, but it's not going to be a contender come the end of the season because they're just not capable on that side of the ball.
Before we fly through a couple more storylines, got to pay some bills here and remind you that this episode is brought to you by our friends over at PredictionMachine.com. Prediction Machine is a new generation in sports analytics where they simulate the game 50,000 times before they're actually played. Make better picks with proven data-driven analysis. Subscribe at PredictionMachine.com today and earn a $5 credit that can be used toward a future purchase of any package. That's package. Did I say that right?
You
Came
did.
out weird.
It's a strange term anyway. Whatever package you're buying just sounds a little bit,
Predictionmachine.com. Go check it out. Okay, Seahawks. They're the true leader in the NFC West, right? They're the best team in the NFC West. They proved it against the Rams. Is that just a classic Seahawks game right there? 16-10 win on the road. Jared Goff had some opportunities to win it down the stretch.
That's the thing, right? So this game kind of went as we thought it might. I mean, that Seahawks pass rush has been a problem all season long. They lost Michael Bennett during the game, but he was getting a bit of pressure. It didn't torpedo them. And you expected Jared Goff, the way he's been playing this season, had the opportunity to win that game and couldn't yet. And I guess the thing with the Seahawks team is, for as much as they struggle, and they tend to struggle a lot every single season, they're used to it. They expect to be digging themselves out of a hole every single season, and they've gotten pretty good at doing it. So, the Seahawks team is the class of the NFC West until somebody else steps up and proves they're not, and the Rams weren't able to do it this week.
Yeah, I thought, Goff, we talked about him last week on our, hey, the stats look great. We love Goff. We think he's going to be a good player, but he's not playing as well as the stats. Came down to earth a little bit against that tough Seahawks defense, but he was making some throws down the stretch there. The inconsistencies of Russell Wilson continue, where he looks like the best quarterback in the league on Sunday Night Football, not so much against the Rams in L.A. Let's go to perhaps the game of the week. Green Bay and Dallas. You and I on the grading.
Yeah.
Working opposite sides
over
here.
The all-star team, naturally.
Oh, what a great game.
So, just going back to the Russell Wilson thing again, I perpetually make the case that his good, bad games are related almost entirely to how much he's pressured.
Study it.
22 dropbacks under pressure this week, 21 without pressure. So, when you get above, I think his line is 45%-ish. If you're above 45% in terms of how much pressure you're getting on Russell Wilson, you're going to get bad Russell Wilson. If you're under 45%, you've got a pretty good chance of getting good Russell Wilson. And that's why not rushing him, doing this whole...
The mush rush
or the bull rush where you just maintain gap and keep him in the pocket. It's the wrong way to play Russell Wilson because there's a line. And that line is perpetually so bad. The offensive line is permanently so bad that he's always hovering right on that line.
Right.
So if you just back yourself to get pressure on him, if you notch it over 45%, you're going to cause bad Russell Wilson to show up.
That is a great study. Where's my analytics team? Analytics team mobilize. I know you guys listen to the podcast.
I need an analytics team. You got me right here. I can run your numbers, sort of.
I don't trust you.
No.
Analytics team, look, I know you're one Skype message away, but I want you to listen to this and put this into action, and we'll have some numbers maybe as soon as this week. What happens to Russell Wilson? We got to look at the different cutoffs when he's pressured 40%, 45%, 50%, and how that changes.
The important thing, though, is we only want these numbers if it proves me right. If it proves me wrong,
we'll keep them in-house.
Have to lose the study somehow.
Yeah, we'll keep them in-house if it does not prove your point. But that one does prove your point.
Yes.
That was over the threshold.
Therefore, it's a perfect theory.
Not a good game for Russell. Okay, Packers and Cowboys. Look, Cowboys started out great. Dak was hot, making big-time throws, making throws in the red zone. Man, they are so tough to defend. When you get into the red zone and they're running run-pass options where they can trust that offensive line, hand it to Zeke, or Dak can pull it and throw accurate passes, that is unstoppable. But they were unable to sustain it in the second half.
Well, look, the only important thing to come out of this game is that we got statistics to add to our Des Bryant PD tracker because Des Bryant
notched himself. With that.
Yeah, Des Bryant notched himself. I'm going to say it's 2. There was one clear pass breakup.
Why are you giving him 2 here? Look, there was one. So it was Dak's only turnover-worthy play of the game, I would say.
There was one clear pass breakup that goes in his PD column that gets Des Bryant to 5 on the season.
But that was the one that was a poor throwback across Dak's body. The cornerback was very much in good position to intercept it, and Dak had to come back to the ball and break it up. That is a pass break.
That was exactly like the other 4, where it was thrown to the cornerback, and Des Bryant had to break it up to prevent an interception. The other one was less clear cut, but frankly, it's such an awesome statistic. I'm gonna lean on the side of giving Des. I'm being generous to the defensive back. If he's in position to break up the pass, I'm gonna credit him with the PD, and that's how we're gonna do this. It wasn't as directly thrown to the cornerback as the other ones, but it was an interceptable pass, and Des Bryant broke it up by
Which one are you giving? Not the jump ball in the end zone at the end.
Not at the end. Some kind of high ball to the end zone. Des Bryant breaks it up. It was good. Definitely a PD.
We're going to have to check the video footage here.
Anyway, that gives him 6 for the year, right? As a wide receiver, he is now 3rd in the NFL in PDs.
I'm speechless.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah, I'm all about you flipping Dez's role into
I'm just saying, look,
into cornerback.
Des Bryant has been struggling a little bit to be the Des Bryant of old as a receiver. Maybe they might want to think about a position switch.
So he's now tied with Menelik Watson. So Menelik Watson's sacks are now the equivalent of Dez's pass breakups.
Well, no, you've just ridden this right off the rails. Comparing PDs to PDs made sense. Comparing it to sacks is...
No, because we have 2 big trackers.
We don't, though. We haven't put the Menelik Watson one up on the wall yet.
We might Instagram some pictures of our beautiful office/closet here.
With a Post-it note on the wall.
If you guys aren't following us on Instagram, it's Pro Football Focus, I believe is the handle/name. What do you call Instagram? Is it a handle?
I guess, yeah.
The name?
Account name, handle. Yeah, handle.
You sound like a Zennial. We're not millennial enough to know
who knows
these terms here.
That's what it is.
Okay, what about the actual game before we lose all listeners? Terrence Williams with a huge drop leading to a pick 6. And that was kind of the turning point in the game. Then Aaron Rodgers just got really nasty toward the end of the game.
So it was the Packers are clawing this back and back. Aaron Jones had a fantastic game for anybody that was kind of concerned about this Green Bay offense without Ty Montgomery and what were they going to do. Aaron Jones looked fantastic.
He did.
Ran the ball well, wasn't used really as a passing threat, but every time they needed a run, he was rattling off 7, 8, 9 yards. And we've talked before about how this offense is a completely different unit when they have a strong running game to base everything off. So they were clawing it all the way back. Then right at the end, Dak Prescott, the Cowboys drive down and they score, but they score too early. They give Aaron Rodgers the ball with seconds left on the clock, and it was only ever going to end one way. Rodgers did Rodgers things, brought them down the field and scored. So
it's interesting because I've heard some people were critical of the Cowboys for scoring too early. I don't. There's at some point you just don't control that. So say you run this perfect play. It was a zone read keeper. Yeah. Would you, if you're Dak,
drop
just
before you hit
take a knee at the 1? Because you can't just say we're going to run okay plays that don't let us score. You still want to get yourself in position to score, but you would just drop at the 1 and assume you're going to score from there.
Well, the first thing
because they needed a touchdown.
Yeah, the first thing is there's no way you can expect the quarterback to come to that decision live in the middle of the play.
Well, you got to know ahead of the play. You got to know, hey, here's the play.
So this has
here's
to
what
be,
we're doing.
This has to be pre-worked out as a team, right? As a coaching staff, as a team. If this situation arises and we need this to happen, we are deliberately taking a knee before we score, right?
Right.
So anyone that's like, what was Dak doing? Why did he run it? No, you can't. There's no way a quarterback makes that calculation on the fly as he's running into the end zone and just takes the knee. So that's the first point. The second point is I would always lean on the idea of there's no way you take the points off the board. You have 7 points there. You need 7 points to take the lead in the first place. You can't risk the idea that you can't then punch it in just because there's more time left on the clock for them to score. At the other end. It's just you can't.
Even with Aaron Rodgers on the other side.
You have to work on the basis that it's more important for me to be secure of taking the lead than it is to ensure they have less time to work with to answer my score. I mean, the bottom line is taking the lead is still more important than the amount of time left for the other person to answer your leading score.
Rodgers had taken some criticism through the years for not being great at the fourth quarter comeback.
Yeah.
The fourth quarter comeback numbers.
Probably put that to bed now.
I mean, between the last couple of years, every time he's got the ball in his hands. And I would say forget the Hail Mary ones. I think there's only one in there. Anyway, that was probably there was only one game winner, right?
He has 4 touchdowns in the last 30 seconds, I think, of games in the last, I don't know, whatever it was.
Well, one or two of them are Hail Marys, but the Hail Marys I'm not really giving him credit for. But
credit for one.
The drive, it's a great throw, but the result I can't give him credit for.
The throw was so good, I don't care.
The throw was incredible. But look, we're talking he's driving them down. He's back shouldering. He's moving the chains with his legs. He did throw a dangerous second to last pass, a little dangerous into coverage.
Yeah.
But then he throws that, the fade ball essentially up and away from Jordan Lewis in a perfect spot. I mean, Rodgers is just such a special quarterback in the red zone. It is so difficult to stop between his athleticism, his ability to buy time, or to just drop pinpoint throws like that. So he's back. Again, there's bouts of his career where you look at it and you're like, that might be the best quarterback play of all time that we've seen. As far as like an 8 to 10 game stretch, I don't know that he's in the middle of one right now, but it's always kind of in there. And yesterday felt like one of those.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers at his best, I think, is as good as anybody has ever played the position. He is so difficult to defend.
Because he does everything well.
And you can't, and even there were plays yesterday that had that thing where he resets the leverage of his linemen. There was one play in particular where he was going to get pressure from both tackle spots. And bear in mind that the tackle spots at this point are still manned by guards, at least on the left side.
The 5-guard system in Green Bay.
So he was going to get pressure inside, or at least bull rush from both these guards. And whereas most quarterbacks would sort of panic and spin out and try and get out of the pocket somehow, he just took a hop backwards, and it meant that the rushers had to reset. They had to figure out where he was going, back off a little bit from the guy they were driving into him, and figure out where he was and where they needed to go to contain him again. And it just bought him another 2 seconds in the pocket. I mean, there's almost nobody in the NFL that can do that and can do it regularly. And Rodgers does it every single week. It's just this freakish ability.
Vacating backwards, especially, is usually what makes things more difficult on your linemen, because we talked about this all the time. That's when the defensive linemen can see where you're going. They change their angle, and the blockers are hung out to dry because they can't change their blocking angle. That's what a guy like Geno Smith would always do. That's why coaches are sticklers for. If it's a 7-step drop, I need you at 9.5 yards. Once you get to 10 or 11, you're completely changing the angles. But what you're saying with Rodgers is his ability to do this mid-play, alter
and it's
things.
Not a case of he's just backing up. He just understands he needs to take one hop backwards, and everybody needs to stop what they're doing and change things, because suddenly he's just changed the angles they're working with. So, when we talked about how quarterbacks generally oblivious to them are changing the angles that everybody else has to work with from a blocking system.
Right.
Rodgers has the ability to understand what those angles are on the fly and adjust them. And nobody else can do that. No other quarterback in the NFL, I think, does that. Even guys like Tom Brady, who has an amazing pocket presence, is only working from a sort of selfish point of view of what do I need to do to get myself more space within this pocket. It's just sliding to get the best angle. Rodgers, I think, is the only quarterback, and maybe the only quarterback I've ever seen, who consciously calculates that stuff on the fly, not just what makes it easier for me, but what fixes the leverage of my blockers here so that I then get more time in this pocket. The only person I've ever seen that can do similar things is Roethlisberger on the move. So Roethlisberger didn't do it in the pocket, but he understood what him extending plays could do in terms of moving around coverage.
And he was also calling out peel back blocks for his linemen and knowing how coverage defend. Absolutely.
So he had this ability to calculate that stuff on the move in terms of moving everybody on defense. But Rodgers is the only guy I've ever seen calculate it in terms of the blocking and the pocket that he's working with.
There's still going to be this level of boom or bust with it too, and we'll charge him with more sacks than most quarterbacks. We've charged him with 6 so far this season, but I think that's fine. I mean,
but at some point, that's a good thing. Like at some point, it's better
when you're getting the upside, when you're getting the plays that come out of those extended plays, taking an extra sack after 5 or 6 seconds every once in a while is not the worst thing in the world.
It's like this. The EPA stuff, what is the worst play? Rodgers has, I think, the all-time lowest interception rate in NFL history. So what you're getting when you weigh up, he's going to take some more sacks than most quarterbacks, but he's also going to throw less interceptions than any other quarterback that's ever played the game.
And that was Andrew Luck on the other end. And Luck didn't have a high interception percentage, but he had a lot of fumbles in the grasp in his early years. Had too many turnover-worthy plays that were or weren't intercepted, but he rarely took sacks. So there is that little bit of a debate. Either way, what we're trying to say is watch Aaron Rodgers. He's a lot of fun. Dak overall, I'm still a big believer in what he's done. I know and he didn't fail yesterday. He threw a pick 6 that was not his fault at all.
Well, they scored the go-ahead touchdown.
And they scored the go-ahead touchdown.
Too soon.
Absolutely. The too soon touchdown.
Can we also take a moment to ask why Davante Adams catches like a seal? If you watch that final pass that came in his direction, I don't know whether this is... I mean, Davante Adams has always had quite a lot of drops, which is why I'm kind of using this analogy as opposed to just putting it down to the ball came at him and this is a late reaction to how, and that's just the way his limbs went in that moment. But he turns around for this kind of back shoulder ball. It's coming in pretty low and fast because that's how this ball was thrown. And Rodgers reacts to this, or Davante Adams rather reacts to this by just throwing up two hands and trying to trap it between them, as if you just thrown a beach ball at a seal and he was catching it between his two flippers. It did not look like the most natural hands catch of all time. It looked like a man that was reacting to something fired at his face, and that reaction was just to throw both of his limbs at it and hope it stopped it.
We need you to demonstrate this maybe on the Instagram account.
Oh, I could do that.
Pro Football
Let's
Focus.
do that after this podcast.
We will. Give me the seal catch for the Instagram account. Be sure to follow us over there. We're running short on time, but Davante Adams, overall, I think he's pretty good. I think he takes a lot of heat for various things. Sometimes seal catching.
like catching like a seal.
Might be that 19 drops over a 2-year period, but the guy can run not every now and again. I think he's a really good route runner as far as his wiggle and ability to get open. There are many routes where he creates a ton of separation and is more good than bad for Aaron Rodgers.
I think he is a testament to what a receiver can achieve who is not good at catching the ball. I mean, he is great at everything other than actually naturally catching a ball. If you put Odell Beckham at one end of the scale in terms of natural catching ability,
right.
You know what I mean? Like the way that guy just plucks balls out of the air one-handed as if it's nothing in warm-ups. Davante Adams couldn't do that.
Is that why Adams, I feel like he's very polarizing.
Yeah, probably. And at the other end of the scale, I think you've got someone like Adams who struggles more to naturally catch the ball. It isn't a natural thing for him to just, pluck the ball out of the air, easily soft hands. It's just something that he has to do in order to be good at this job he is. But on the flip side of that, he's a really good route runner. He's athletic. He's dynamic. He's really good at everything other than just fluidly, naturally catching the ball. But I think it's a testament to how good you can be without being amazing at that particular skill, which you would think of as necessary for being a wide receiver in the NFL.
When Rodgers started to get better down the stretch last year, Adams was a huge part of it. He started to separate much better. And again, more often than not, I think he knows how to separate short, deep, a big part of that Packers offense.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a couple PFF Elite stats. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So PFF Elite, it is our number one product. Our old signature stats are back. Don't forget the game grades Sam was telling you about earlier, all a part of the Elite package, and we just keep adding more goodies to it. So be sure to check it out over at profootballfocus.com. Our lesser package, PFF Edge, all available at profootballfocus.com/PFF-offers. Go check out the various offers where you could find PFF Edge. Okay, my first stat from Elite, staying with the Green Bay Packers, second-year linebacker Blake Martinez is leading in run-stop percentage this year, leading the league among all linebackers with at least 100 snaps against the run, 14.9%. He was making plays yesterday against Dallas. Just has a knack for finding the football and making plays. I know it's a pass-first league, but there's a lot of value in being able to find the football and make some stops in the run game.
Yeah, he's a fun player. He was a good player at Stanford as well, and he's had stretches where he's looked pretty good in coverage as well, albeit relatively athletically limited.
You just got to put him in the right position.
Yeah.
Athletically.
So my first stat, we've already done, it was Dez Bryant being number 3 in the NFL in pass breakups, despite being a wide receiver.
Never gets old.
Never, no. The number of people that tweeted me the moment Dez Bryant broke up that interception, like half a dozen people instantly were chalking up another notch on the PFF Dez Bryant PD tracker.
We are learning that we truly do love you guys, our listeners.
Yeah, we didn't think we did, and now we're discovering it. Now we've opened the lines of
now I know.
communication.
Yes, we get a lot of good feedback. We've got some smart listeners. We've got some fun listeners. So spread the word. Tell everybody about the PFF podcast. Let's get this party growing. My stats are more about procedural stuff and scheme stuff. It's not procedural, but it's not really a stat of success. It's merely that Jamal Adams, rookie safety from the New York Jets, has blitzed or rushed the passer more than any other safety in the NFL so far with 26.
Okay.
So it's more of a player usage type of stat that I found in Elite that I found interesting, and I hope our millions and millions of listeners find that interesting as well.
That makes sense. He was one of those kind of matchup players, jack of all trades type of safety.
Yeah, he could do it all.
So Derek Johnson, Kansas City inside linebacker, one of the great marvels of the modern NFL.
Certainly
given
is.
how long he's lasted and how busted up he's been over the years. The average NFL linebacker, when targeted, I'm going quite kind of voiceover on this. The average NFL linebacker, when targeted, gives up a passer rating of 48.8. No, I've done that the wrong way around. Derek Johnson, when targeted, gives up a passer rating of 48.8. The average NFL linebacker, when targeted, gives up a passer rating of 108.2. So Derek Johnson is giving up a passer rating 60 points better than the average NFL linebacker, coming off the back of 2 Achilles injuries.
I like it. And linebacker stats can lie a little bit, but usually when you're on that top end of it, you're keeping the ball in front of you, making some plays on the ball, there's usually some good stuff.
I mean, that's Luke Kuechly range. That's where he was when he was 50 points better than the NFL average as well. So Derek Johnson is basically playing as well as anybody in coverage right now, coming off the back of 2 Achilles injuries, which typically shut guys down for a year, and then you're not the same guy for another 6 months or a year.
Of course, Luke Kuechly was our Night Train Lane coverage player of the year in 2015. A name that I think we'll bring back.
Oh, hell yeah.
For the awards, now that Sam is in charge. Sam, you in charge? You
sure.
can do that?
Let's do that.
All right, my stat. DeMar Dotson, right tackle for the Tampa Bay Bucks, currently leading the NFL in pass blocking efficiency, 99.1. I believe it's only 2 pressures total that he's given up so far.
I like it. I was thinking of using that one, but instead I went with another offensive lineman, another tackle. Ronnie Stanley, the Baltimore Ravens left tackle, second-year player.
Yes.
Gave up this week 1 total pressure across 27 pass blocking snaps. Now, that's a relatively benign number given some of these ridiculous numbers we're pointing out, but the reason I brought that up is Stanley is from Las Vegas, and Stanley is going to donate $1,000 for every snap in pass protection that he didn't allow either a sack, hit, or hurry. So in this case, that is 26 snaps and $26,000 that Ronnie Stanley will be donating to, I don't know what organization it is, but Vegas Relief, since the tragic events that happened there.
Well, that's outstanding, and definitely something I like that. I like that guys are doing this, and that we can highlight it. I know we're living in this, not to get off the train, we're living in this world where people like to highlight the negativity a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed, Sam. There's a lot of negativity out there, but between Ronnie Stanley giving back, J.J. Watt, I know he just got hurt, but all that he did in Houston, and a lot of good for a lot. There was one other person I was going to say. Oh, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson gave his first game check to hurricane victims in Houston. A lot of great stuff like that going on in the NFL. So I'm happy to highlight some of that rather than focusing on all of the negative, Sam.
Deshaun Watson can give his game check to people in Houston, and Carson Wentz can't give his game check to the kicker that made the 61-yard field goal to win them the game.
He offered. I think
apparently,
he offered.
like the money structure system in the NFL was so complicated that it was just easier for them to give it to charity instead. I bet that kicker is, it's the kind of thing that you can't complain about because you're giving the money to charity, but I bet it's secretly inside he is seething that he didn't get Carson Wentz's game check.
Well, that's the thing, too. You know that Carson Wentz is going to be collecting these game checks for at least another 10 more years, probably. The kicker lifespan,
Kicker goes on a bad run, he's out in his ear next Friday.
Right. As a kicker, you're either in like the Adam Vinatieri 20-plus year category, or you got like 4 games in you.
Yeah.
So
I bet, like I say, you can't complain about it because the money's gone to charity, but I bet inside
Wentz should pay him like the lottery over 20 years. Over 20-year installments.
Just could put him on a plan.
Or Bobby Bonilla style, $1 million every. You don't even know who Bobby Bonilla is, but you know the story.
But only because of that.
1992, I believe he signed that contract.
What I didn't understand is that it actually makes sense. Like when there's every
for
year.
Him?
No, for
the team,
the Mets.
Well, yeah.
Did I get the right name?
You did.
Nice
job.
See,
a little baseball talk here.
It actually apparently made sense for them.
Because you got the money in the bank. You're making interest on it.
They made more money than they would have had to pay him anyway.
People think he's smart.
Yeah. Well,
but he's not.
I mean,
well, you're not losing. I mean, you're not losing a ton here. You could have put that money in the bank.
He's doing pretty well either way.
You are. Maybe he knows not to trust himself with his money.
Yeah.
Especially back in the 90s. So he's like, I'll just take my $1 million check every July 1st.
I have no idea what we're talking about, by the way.
Bobby Bonilla Day. I guarantee everybody knows about Bobby Bonilla Day. Every July 1st, former Mets player signed a contract, something like 30 straight years of collecting $1 million every July 1st. So instead of getting the money back in the 90s, He sent it out, spread it out over 25 or 30 years or whatever it is, and it's every July 1st, and we call it Bobby Bonilla Day. He was, at one time, the highest paid player in Major League Baseball, even though he was not the best player in Major League Baseball. That's right, I know a little baseball, Sam.
Really?
I do. All right, guys, it's been a great Week 5 review. Don't forget, 4 big episodes all week. Please hit that subscribe button. I'll be back here with Zach Robinson breaking down 5 or 6 quarterbacks in depth. What did they do this week? PFF grades, some great numbers you can't find anywhere else. General great insight. Don't forget about our episode that is fueled by our listeners, podcasts at profootballfocus.com is the email.
Not mailbag at profootballfocus.com.
Everybody's sending stuff to mailbag right now.
Email, yeah.
Okay, keeps getting redirected. Our IT team is very upset. Podcasts at profootballfocus.com. That's Ian. He's on one of the old episodes.
Podcasts, plural, just in case.
Yes, multiple podcasts. At profootballfocus.com. Send us all of your feedback, all of your questions, all of your general thoughts about life and football to that, or at PFF_Sam, and I am at PFF_Steve. That's it. We're done. See you guys next time.